Hey guys, what's up? What's going on? I put this at the front of this video because this is an edit. The reason I did it, Tile Coach, aka Isaac Ostrom, made a comment last night on this video that I posted 2 weeks. I think it's been 2 weeks or whatever. This is the video where he says homeowner used REDGARD and his shower failed, giving the impression that REDGARD is a bad product. The impression that REDGARD is a bad product because a homeowner failed. You can go on my channel and watch that video in its entirety. But this video, because Isaac pushes back against REDGARD all the time, which is why I'm making this next video that you're going to see in a few minutes. And I don't mean to make this video longer and all that stuff, but because Isaac, let me see, add to the stage, because Isaac chimed in, I'm going to let you read this. Hold on a second. I'm going to read it for you in case you can't see it too well. So he chimed in late last night on this video that's been up for 2 weeks. A lot of hate in the comments because I made videos that follow the REDGARD instructions exactly as directed in the TDS, and it failed. I did the same thing with Laticrete thin sets. Well, Laticrete thin sets is not the same thing as waterproofer, but okay. My point of those videos was to point out the instructions were wrong. But again, if you know they're wrong, why are you giving out the wrong information? Like, don't put, and there should be a disclaimer. Let me put it that way. At the end of your video, I follow the directions and they are wrong. Here's the right way to do it, because that's not what he does. My channel is and always has been about avoiding failures. Well, not really, because if you don't show the remediation, then how can you avoid the failure? Because you don't put a disclaimer at the end of your video. REDGARD is so cheap and so available to a novice DIY and handyman that it becomes a common sighting in the bad shower jobs. True enough, because it's sold at Home Depot. But now there's other products that are sold at both Lowe's and other stores and all that stuff that are more expensive. Because it's more expensive doesn't make it better. If REDGARD decided, you know what, let's bump it up to $100 a pail instead of $55, that wouldn't make it better just because it costs more. Because it's available at Home Depot, yes, DIYers and handymen and all that stuff are going to use it, but Home Depot could swap that out tomorrow and decide Hydroban is going to be what we market. I think Lowe's carries Aqua Defense, and Aqua Defense can have the same problems as REDGARD, so I don't buy that. I appreciate his comment, but it had nothing to do with this video. This video had to do with the homeowner failing, and what he talks about here has to do with the videos that he makes where he follows the directions, right? That's what this particular video that you're getting ready to watch is about, him following the directions. So he jumped the gun, almost like he knew I was going to make this video, although he couldn't know that. So anyway, enjoy this video and take it with a grain of salt, because again, Isaac and I, well, this is all business related. You know, Isaac's a cool guy. I like him, and this is not personal, but it does matter in the scheme of things because Isaac doesn't give disclaimers in his failure videos. You know, even the one that I posted, you know, this is the homeowner that failed it, not the REDGARD, and he didn't say that. He never talked about the homeowner. But anyway, that being said, enjoy the rest of this video. I know it's an hour long. Please stay tuned. There's a lot of information to be had. Thank you. What's going on, guys? What is happening? How are you guys doing? I am back with another video pushing back on REDGARD, who Isaac Ostrom likes to do a lot. The last couple of videos has to do with his pushback. The last one mentioning me in particular. So this video that I'm doing today is 3 years old. And I rarely comment on Isaac's videos. And I didn't comment on this one, even though I had my own pushback, I just kind of left it alone. You know, him and I are in different states. We're in different lanes. We're in different mindsets of how things are done. So it was just better to leave well enough alone 3 years ago when I watched this. Because sometimes the internet has a funny way of correcting and putting you back. If you go into the comment section on this video, you're going to see some of the pushback. And I'm going to talk about some of the pushback because I had the same thoughts. It just wasn't a point for me to point out some of these erroneous statements that he made, because other people did a pretty good job of that already in the comment section. So you can go back and watch the full video. I'm not going to play the full video because I think it's 17 or 19 minutes long. And then with my commentary, that'll push it into an hour. So I don't want to do that, but I want to kind of hit on the important points that I noticed back 3 years ago. And the reason specifically is because he still continues to make REDGARD videos pushing back on the product. And in this one in particular, he did such a horrific experiment on the REDGARD that he used. Well, I'm going to play the video because it's worth mentioning. As I said on my last video about him, he has twice the subscribership that I do. So a lot more people are watching him than they're watching me. And that video is still live on his channel. So I just wanted my take on it so that people will have both sides of the story, so that people will have an informed decision that they can make whether or not to use this product. Well, for that matter, any product, but specifically REDGARD. So they'll have that informed decision. If you look in the comment section, a lot of people are like, well, DIYers wouldn't know that it has to set for 72 hours and yada, yada, yada. But again, DIYers, like the 2 videos that I showed of his, they're DIY showers, they don't do enough vetting of the process. They don't watch enough videos. They certainly don't watch mine. Because none of the ways that they built their showers is the way that I build mine. So it's disingenuous to then go on, like the last 2 videos, talking about how the REDGARD failed when it was actually the homeowner that failed the REDGARD and not vice versa. So anyway, without further ado, I'm going to play this video, but I'm going to chime in. And sorry about the poor quality of the video. I've got sunshine behind me and all this stuff, and I'm at a hotel room. I couldn't get the right lighting, so sorry about on the video. Where is it at? Right here. So I'm gonna talk about. I'm not going to talk smack about Isaac, but I'm going to talk smack about some of the things that he says, because I don't have a personal grudge. You know, me and Isaac have spoken before, and we did a live stream one time and all that stuff. We share the same birthday, so we're still both analytical thinkers. But in his lane, as I said in my last video, he doesn't have the peripheral to look outside of the box, to look past the directions. And that's where his major malfunction lies. So I'm going to add him to the stage and let him go on, and I will chime in when I need to.
So I'm so stoked you're here. Let's get into the procedure and how I did this test. So the typical installation that I see on the internet or Instagram, or the information that you guys send me, is typically REDGARD is placed over a dry pack mortar.
Okay, this is clearly my video, because I have a tendency of not putting my face on my videos the way he does and Sal does. A lot of people put their face on video, and my video's never been Bob Doyle. My videos have been Star Tile. So my videos is about my work and not me. So I'm always waving my hand around and all that stuff. So I know for a fact this is one of my videos.
Bed on a shower pan, then it's spread up the walls and everything. But the most crucial area is always the shower pan and the curb. So what I did to emulate a shower pan is put dry pack mortar in the plexiglass before I put the REDGARD membrane.
Which was a mistake. Plexiglass has absolutely 100% no way of absorbing into anything. Now, you could argue the point that neither does a pan liner. You're putting a pan liner under that, and then the wallboard should be waterproof. So you could argue that point, that there's no absorption of any moisture into plexiglass any more than there would be a normal shower, but I disagree.
On. So it's important to note that I did download the technical data sheet from Custom Building Products before I started in on this.
And that's one of the problems that he has that I referenced earlier, that he's looking at the data sheet. I have a video on REDGARD, my very first video, I think first or second video going back 8-9 years ago. And on that video, I think there's 100, is there 100? No, 1.2 million views on that video where I'm applying REDGARD onto Greenboard. And Custom Building Products chimed in on that video and said, although we appreciate your passion for our product, it's not really, we're not really using it on sheetrock. And I'm like, yeah, okay, thanks. And I still do, because it still works. So I don't rely on the directions, instructions, data, all that stuff that the producer of the product makes. You see, I rely on my ability to use the product.
And one thing to note is with mortar beds, there's no specified time that it says to wait for the mortar bed to cure before you apply REDGARD. So,
well, that being said, I don't believe, and I might be mistaken, but I don't believe that REDGARD, specifically Custom Building Products, allows their product or specifies that their product can be used on a mortar bed. So I don't know that Isaac said the truth on there. He could be right, but there's not a specific time that what he's saying for the mortar bed to dry. But Isaac knows, and I know, and every tile setter knows that a mortar bed should be dried at least 3 days. At least 3 days, if not longer, for it to cure, for all the moisture that's in it to do what it's supposed to do, and for it to dissipate, because that's what it's going to do in 3 days. But well, anyway, I'll let the video play.
So what I did is I just waited 24 hours till the mortar bed was hard and it was the light color, it was dry. And as a matter of fact, you can see that light color through the glass box.
Dry is not the same thing as cured,
which is really nice. So I let the mortar bed cure for 24 hours and then I did the first coat. Now, while there's no specified curing time on the mortar beds in the data sheet, what is in the data sheet is the rate of application that you need to use to apply the REDGARD. If you go to page 3 of the data sheet, it says to meet the requirements of IAMPO, 2 coats should be applied at a rate of 80 square feet per gallon each coat. So 80 square feet per gallon each coat. So that would mean that 1 gallon of REDGARD would cover 40 square feet. Again, that's 2 coats at 80 square feet per gallon. If we did the 2 coats, that would equal 40 square feet finished for 2 coats. So now that I had the specified rate of application, I needed to do a little bit of math to figure out the exact amount to use on this little glass box test. So what I did is I calculated out the square footage of the glass box itself, the mortar layer, and going up the sides. And what I came up with was 2.88 square feet. So the area that I was going to put the REDGARD on was 2.88 square feet. Now, if I take that number 2.88, I divide it by 80, it gives me a percentage. So that's 3.6%. So this glass box is 3.6% of the area of 80. So now that I have that percentage, if I want to turn that into fluid ounces, which is probably the easiest way for me to measure, is in 1 gallon there's 128 fluid ounces. So if I go 3.6%, that's 0.036 times 128, what I come up with is 4.6 fluid ounces. So each coat is going to get 4.6 fluid ounces. So that's really easy. So I just take my measuring cup, fill it up to 4.6 fluid ounces, and I know exactly the amount to spread on each coat. Now, I applied the first coat very carefully with a brush, doing my best to make it as even as possible. Again, this 80 square feet per gallon rate is actually pretty heavy, and it's a lot heavier than I see most people installing REDGARD. You know, typically when somebody puts on REDGARD, what I usually see is somebody just using a roller and they just go over really lightly, almost like a thin coat of paint.
Yes and no. When I apply REDGARD, it's not necessarily thin because I'm using a roller, but I'm getting probably at the most 3, maybe 4 square feet before I dip my roller again. So it's going on relatively thick with the roller. But again, the roller is only for the walls, and walls don't fail. So there is that.
Well, that is not the specified rate of application. To do it at 80 square feet per gallon, you need to leave it on there pretty thick. So I used my brush and put it on as evenly as I could as possible, using up all 4.6 fluid ounces to ensure that I was getting it at the correct rate of application. So also in the data sheet, it talks about the drying time of each coat, and which I've found across the board, I have found that what they say it's going to dry at typically does not happen. They said from 1 to an hour and a half, but then it also says up to 12 hours. So each coat could take up to 12 hours of dry time. What I've found when you apply it at the correct rate, it's typically 4 to 5 hours it will dry. I know for sure I can't fill this thing up with water because it'll just leak. So what I did is I actually did a third coat just in the corners, just to make sure I filled in any of the cracking that occurred. So I went around all of the corners really good, and I did that third coat covering up all the cracks as best that I could. So that was yesterday. Today's Monday. So starting it with the dry pack on Wednesday, the first coat was Thursday, the second coat was Friday, the third coat was Sunday. Now finally today I came in and it looked nice. It looked like the third coat had covered the cracks. So I figured this is the time, let's fill it up with water. So at 8 p.m. this morning, I filled it up with water.
I'm not going to get on to him 8 p.m. this morning.
And it is now 5 p.m. Again, I'm done with my work day. Today was an awesome day. I actually 8 hours, and I've done a little time lapse. One thing to note, and I brought this up before in one of my live streams, I talked about how these liquid waterproofings, they change colors when they get wet, which is really weird if you think about if it's a waterproof product, why does it change colors again from the dark to the light, like almost like the product itself is wet? If it was completely waterproof, it would seem like they would just stay the same color, that if you put water on it wouldn't affect it. But what this time lapse shows is that it didn't take hardly any time at all for the dark red dry, once I put water in it, to turn the light pink color again. And gradually it started in one spot and then it just kind of grew. For me, that's hard to wrap my mind around, that it changes colors when it gets wet.
Okay, so this video was produced 3 years ago. I've been using REDGARD for a good part of a dozen years, and I noticed that when I first started using it, but I could clearly put my hand in the water on a flood test and kind of feel the pink, and the pink is still solid. So 3 years ago, he doesn't know enough about REDGARD that he still tripped out that it turns back to pink. How can it turn back to pink if it's supposed to be a solid? Well, it's the same way that a newspaper, turns to like dark when you get it wet. You splash some water on it and the newspaper gets dark. And then when it dries out, it's light again. Like, I don't know what's so hard to wrap your mind around when using this product, because everyone does it. Every single product out there does it. Back in the day, it was Aqua Defense that actually went on like an aqua color and dried a dark green. But if you wet it, it went back to aqua. The color changed, but the product did not. And then when Isaac talks about re-emulsifying, no comment.
So actually the whole bottom has almost turned to the light pink as it sat for 8 hours. So let's check it out. Let's see what's going on with it right now. Okay, so here we go. Here's all my timestamps that I put on there. And we got it filled with water. As you can see, it's the light pink color. And check it out. I already have some leaking, and I first noticed this leak happening. It took about 3 or 4 hours. It was right around lunchtime that I noticed it started coming through. So I did a little time lapse on that, and you can just see the moisture growing a little bit. It's also on this side, you can see we got dry mortar here, and we got wet there. So it's leaking in that corner.
Okay, so same as his other last two videos that I chimed in on, where I said operator malfunction was the issue with the homeowners. This is operator malfunction, clearly. I don't know what he did wrong to cause the mortar pan to leak, where there's not a monolithic coat. Well, he said 3 coats or 4 coats, whatever the case is, of this REDGARD, and how he applied it. I don't know how he made that happen. Isaac has a way of making mistakes on products he doesn't like, and then other things that he talks about, he makes sure that there's no mistake. Like, and I'm going to get to that because I have a video that I'm going to show where, you know, going back some years, he talked about a pre-slope and he made it work on purpose by using something we don't use in tile work. And that's important too. So understand where the information is coming from and how he makes things happen or not happen, depending on what outcome he wants to find. Because I've done experiments in cardboard box. I'm going to put the link in the description. I've done an experiment on a drywall box. I'll put the link in the description. And I've done an experiment on mortar bed in cardboard boxes, unlike his with plexiglass. And those cardboard boxes had water in it for, I don't know, 8 days, 9 days with 4 different products, and none of them leaked. And I would have been able to tell through the cardboard a lot easier than he can tell through the glass here, because I don't know. It's difficult for me to understand how he makes things fail.
And so let's get this water out of here. I was trying to be careful with the hose and not mess anything up, but these guys right here, those just cropped up, and you can see those little blisters are all over the entire surface. So let's see. So yeah, and they're filled with water.
And so, to be fair, I have been doing, as I said already, probably a dozen years using REDGARD. Never, did I say never? Ever, ever, ever have I seen blisters on REDGARD. I've never seen it. Whether it's on a wall, shower pan, on my curb, anywhere, I've never seen little water blisters that you can pop. Just never happened. How he's able to make mistakes with something that's so easy to use only goes back to the directions. That and the fact he didn't let the mortar bed cure for 3 days, and the fact that he encapsulated it in something that doesn't breathe. That's the only thing that I can rationalize through this mistake that he made, because I don't know if I replicated his mistake, I might be able to cause blisters in REDGARD, but I would have to try. I would have to literally try to make a mistake in order for the end result to be this.
All over the bottom. So there must be a tiny little crack. So there must be a tiny little crack in there that I can't see. But you can see my third coat is actually a little bit lighter color. Then you can see that tiny little crack that I didn't get with my third coat. So let's see what happens if I cut a section out. And the REDGARD is just kind of, I can't even peel it up in a layer. You know, I was hoping to peel it up in, like, maybe I get a margin trowel. Yeah, I was hoping to peel it up in like a layer to see what's happening, but it's really kind of it's just falling apart into little flakes.
Okay, I got a couple of things to say about that. First of all, I'm going to go back to where he said that there was a crack in the corner that he didn't fill in. Operator malfunction. Second thing about that, just same as the blisters, I've never had REDGARD crack. Just never happened. As thick as I put it on at the perimeter of my shower pan, right? Because my wall board sits right above the shower pan, and I slathered in that gap. The gap that I create between my wall board and my shower pan, I slathered in with the brush. 2 coats in there. And I'm always concerned that it might be a little too thick, and it does take some time to dry, not the 4 hours that Isaac talks about. It's usually a couple hours. I put a fan on it. But I've never, ever had REDGARD crack. And he's done a couple of experiments, not just this one, where he's made a crack. And I'm like, wow, blisters and cracking and, you know, like rubbing off so easily like he's showing here. I have another video I just mentioned where I had cardboard boxes, and all 4 of those cardboard boxes were filled up with mortar. Let them cure for 3 days. And then I encapsulated those mortar beds with REDGARD, Aqua Defense, Hydroban, and Ardex S1K. Those 4 products. And after I did my experiment and the water sat in those cardboard boxes 12 days, I think it was 12 days they sat in there. It doesn't really matter. 8 days, 9 days, 10 days, 12 days. It didn't matter if I set them, if I had water in there for 30 contiguous days. I would have to fill the water up because of evaporation, but it wouldn't matter. In a typical experiment, in a typical flood test that we're doing is 24 hours. We fill it up with water before we leave. Next day we come back. So 24 hours arguably is enough time. 12 days of water sat in my pans. And at the end, I dissected, and I'm going to put that video in the description also. I dissected these cardboard boxes, and my mortar, first of all, was a lot more solid than his mortar. You're going to see where he scrapes up his mortar. Maybe that's on the second video that I'm going to show. Yeah, it's on the second video where he scrapes up his mortar, and the mortar is just crumbling. The mortar is like sandy and all this stuff. That's not proper cured mortar. My mortar was properly cured. I had to literally take a hammer and beat all the sections. But the main point is, before I beat it up like that, I took a margin trowel. In fact, I took I think a 5-inch taping knife, drywall taping knife, and tried to scrape all 4 of those products. Well, 3 of them, because one of them failed through my fault. All 3 of those products I tried to scrape off like he's doing with the REDGARD, including my REDGARD, and I could not do it. Yeah, this got absorbed into it to the point where I can't get any kind of sheet. I can't even get one little piece to peel off. I could not scrape the way he's showing in here, and I'm going to back it up and show you again. I could not make that happen because his video preceded mine. And so I'm like, okay, well, let me do the same thing and try and scrape up this REDGARD, which I've never tried before until I tried it. And when I tried it, I couldn't make it happen. I took this, and I went bam, bam, bam. You'll see on the video, bam, 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 at an angle, and I could not scrape it up the way he's doing. I'm just saying, my experiment is done correctly. Screw the directions. My experiment was done correctly. His was done incorrectly, which is why he had an incorrect result.
Like, I want a membrane to be intact and stretchy, especially at this thickness. Let me see. So, yeah, that's some of the membrane, but it's just really fragile. It just...
Fragile, I don't know. Okay. So again, I could not scrape up what he's scraping up. Not even one little section could I do. Watch that video. I said I'm going to put it in the description because I want you to see how it's properly done on a mortar bed and how I had no leaks on those 3 boxes. No leaks for 12 days. And on top of that, I had no blistering. I had no cracks. I had no leakage. And I could not scrape the REDGARD or the other 2 products off of the mortar pan. I just could not do it. I tried. I actually tried. I was actually surprised at the result. I don't think Isaac is surprised. I think Isaac does these experiments off camera before he comes on camera. So he can kind of like, I don't know, show you, it was like a foregone conclusion.
Kind of falls apart. So yeah, all of these little bubbles, you see the water just comes up in them. It's really kind of junky. So here, I'll show you, I'm going to do one of the dry areas, and hopefully that gives me the, to show you kind of what I'm looking for, what I would expect the membrane to be. So yeah, here's the way that the membrane should look. It has a nice elastic, stretchy feel to it. It's got a nice mill thickness on it. I think 22 mils is what they want finished thickness, but
Okay, 22 mils is very, very thick. I think Isaac talks about a credit card thickness. That's humongous amounts of REDGARD. On my last video, I think I showed Steve putting it on that type of mill thickness. And both Steve and Isaac are doing it wrong because they keep following the directions. When you put, and I think Steve said he used 4.5 gallons, and it wasn't even like a shower, full shower. It was a tub enclosure and a floor, the outside floor. 4.5 gallons. What and what are you talking about? It doesn't require that. Go to my experiment. Go into the search box on YouTube. REDGARD on cardboard. You'll find my experiment from whenever it was, 8-9 years ago. And then put in star tile afterwards so you can find it easily. And then go REDGARD on sheetrock, and then followed by star tile, and you're going to see both of those. I think the one on sheetrock was also 12 days. Big giant, 2.5 foot by 2.5 foot sheetrock box. 12 days water stayed in there and no issue whatsoever with 2 coats. So this mill thickness that they're talking about is complete garbage.
that's about right. So you can stretch it, and it's all good. But the problem was, the stuff, so this is the stuff that stayed dry on the side. This is the stuff that was wet on the bottom.
It was wet on the bottom of your mortar pan. That's why you end up with that. I cannot make REDGARD fall apart the way he's doing. I've never seen it, and I can't make it happen.
You see it just falls apart. So there you have it. Take it for what it's worth. This was my glass box testing. I showed you my procedure, and you guys tell me what I did wrong. Obviously, with this spot right here, it was pretty easy to tell that I did see a little crack. I mean, that stuff happens, and maybe we could use this as just a word of caution when you're doing it, to really, really, really check for cracks, because even in a small area like this, where I'm being really, really careful to apply it in the correct thickness, there's no job site conditions that I needed to worry about. I only had to worry about this tiny little spot, and even doing it at that, waiting that long between coats, I still ended up with cracking that led to a leak. So this liquid membrane, I guess my point is that it's not as easy as it seems. It's not as easy as just painting it on. And that's what I see a lot on the internet, on Instagram. I see a lot of installers, they're just painting REDGARD over mortar.
Yep.
And calling it a shower pan. And I look at it and I'm going, oh man, that's not thick enough. And are they water testing? And odds are is like most people who are using REDGARD aren't water testing it, so they wouldn't know about these little blisters that popped up, which again, I have no idea why it happened, but maybe some of you guys out there can fill me in on why it would turn pink like that.
Okay, so to be fair, when he said that, he's seen other videos on Instagram and all this stuff where people are just rolling it on, we don't roll it onto the floor. The roller is only for the walls, and the walls don't fail. That being said, I rolled it on that experiment I was telling you about with sheetrock. I rolled it on the sides and all that stuff, but I still brushed it on the bottom. I still brushed it on the other experiment with the 4 waterproofers. I still brush it when I actually do my work. I brush it. I don't roll it on the bottom. So that's disingenuous also. Another thing about what I wanted to chime in on with this, experiments are usually done, you're comparing apples to apples. So if Isaac had done this experiment, only this experiment with this plexiglass with 24-hour cure time, which it really wasn't, and then applied the same type of material with other products, right? If he had done Aqua Defense and Hydroban and S1K and all these other products that he likes, the same exact way with all of his experiments, which is why I did my experiment with 4 different products, because you have to compare the apples to apples. I did it exactly the same way on all 4 of mine. Isaac only used REDGARD. So that's disingenuous by itself, because how do you compare one product to one product? You can't.
Blister up and just fall apart in water. And yeah, so again, these videos are meant to educate and help start the conversation, come up with solutions. If you do have the solutions, a better way to do it, even though I read the technical data sheet, and again, I'm not sponsored by any manufacturers of these products. My videos are self-supporting through you watching them, through you buying merchandise like this. Some days you make money, some days you make friends t-shirt. If you'd like to support us, please go to tilecoach.com, pick up some merchandise, sign up for a coaching plan, join our team membership, one of those things, and it will help me to make these videos, make them unbiased, so we can all learn and see how they work in real world applications. So
Okay, so let me let me chime in on what he just said for a minute. Go to tilecoach.com, buy my merchandise, call for advice, like do all these things to support me so I can keep making these videos. Google AdSense supports him. He makes a boatload off of AdSense, and we all know that. We all know that YouTubers make money off of, like YouTube, being a YouTuber by itself. So then how do you then say, people get on to me when I was not monetized about, how are you begging for money? Oh yeah, contribute to my Patreon and, $50 for advice and all that stuff, because I monetized myself when Google stopped. I don't expect people to be my Patreon members anymore. In fact, I told them to drop off, and they dropped off by about half now. So because I'm remonetized, I'm not depending on merchandise and all this stuff to support me. Google's supporting me now. AdSense is supporting me. So I don't like that disingenuous thing. Let me finish the video with one more thing.
So before I go, I love you. I love being your tile coach, and we'll see you on the next video.
Some people don't like me because of my sharp edges, and they get cut because I'm very outspoken and I'm very direct. And I don't say, and I love you guys, and I love being your star tile coach. Like, I don't know. It just kind of sets me wrong. And again, I don't have anything against Isaac. He's a good kid. He means well. But when he puts out videos that are disingenuous, when he does things, as I said earlier, that it's a foregone conclusion, because I believe there's no way he, as again, we're both very analytical. We're both very much thinking through process, right? So then first of all, why do you use plexiglass? It makes no sense. I would never make an experiment with plexiglass, because that's not real world. The real world experiments that he was talking about is garbage. We don't build showers out of plexiglass, and we wait 72 hours for the mortar to cure properly. And we don't slather it on to a credit card thickness. That's real world. Foregone conclusion. Let me bring this very good segue. Let me bring this one up.
Compounds that are going to come down through here, conditioner, soap, body oils, all kinds of nasty stuff that happens in showers. As that stuff makes its way through here, we want it to be able to continually be refreshed through here. You don't want stagnant water to just sit in here.
Okay, so he's explaining why a pre-slope works. Now, if you look to the left of that drawing, and he shows that bottom flange is sitting up on the subfloor because of the little divots that are there. I don't know what to call them, but where the bolts go into. There's little 1/4 inch, I think it's 1/4 inch because you can't have a bolt go through nothing. There has to be a little plastic thing. So there are 4 of them on that bottom flange, and he's setting them in that drawing. He's setting them on top of the subfloor. So yeah, there's a little 3/4 inch of water that theoretically could pool up there and all that stuff without a pre-slope. But I put my flange flush to the floor, so I'm not worried about that. I'm not worried about that at all. Sorry, that's not the bottom flange, that's the top flange, the locking flange. The locking flange also, you know, he talks about the weep holes, and he shows in that picture there on the right side where there's little pebbles in there. I don't believe that to be practical, because pebbles are very small and so are the weep holes, and there's typically 6 weep holes in one of these drains. So you potentially clog one or all of the weep holes with a very solid pebble as opposed to a mortar. So this is a thing that drives me crazy. You're telling me that water can get through mortar bed, you know, a whole 2 bags, you know, that's 160 pounds or whatever, or 4 bags of all that mortar water can get into, but when it gets down to the weep hole, it can't get through the mortar because you've clogged them with mortar? So it's able to get into the mortar everywhere else except when it gets to the weep holes, is what you're saying. Secondly, everybody knows, and Isaac knows, that it's not just the 6 weep holes, but it's also the troughs that are cut into that bottom flange. There are 6 of those troughs at the bottom of the flange and the top of the flange. And guess what else? When you screw that drain barrel down, there's cutouts there. There's 2 huge cutouts in those screws when you screw it down on the inside that allows water to get into there also. So it's not only the weep holes where water egresses. There's 8, 9, 10, 15 different places water can egress besides those 6 weep holes that are filled and clogged with sand that water can't manage to penetrate through, but it penetrates through the rest of your bed. So that part is kind of disingenuous too. But the reason I bring this video up, hold on.
And a lot of times you can kind of smell it in old showers when water has been stagnant in here.
So he talks about, let me back up a little bit. He talks about all these chemicals and body oils and stuff like that.
All kinds of nasty stuff that happens in showers. As that stuff makes its way through here, we want it to be able.
Okay, so I disagree with this in a way, and he's right that I have taken about, you know, shower pans out and they're kind of nasty smelling and all that stuff. But having said that, you have sanded grout, typically sanded grout on those tile, which is where the water is going to penetrate through. And so a little 1/4 inch of sanded grout, water is going to penetrate, filter through. I don't know how many body oils and chemicals and, you know, what he talks about is going to actually make its way through a grout line, because the grout itself is sand. And anytime you have sand, just like on a pool that filters, you're going to stop all those minerals and stuff like that from coming through. Well, not maybe minerals, but you get my point, right? There's not exponentially a whole bunch of body oils and skin particles and all that stuff getting through those grout lines. Just not happening. But that's not really the point. That's not why I brought this on. I don't want to push this hour mark.
Look, that's another reason why we like to use deck mud on shower floor. The mortar system hitting the pre-sloped pan liner out the weep holes and back into the bucket. So I'm going to put the other bucket underneath there and pour this in, and we'll see how long it takes. Okay, so here we go. Full bucket minus 2 inches. Try to keep it from splashing out. So that's all from the weep holes. There is no water going through the top of that drain. And you can see it all just pouring out into.
There is no way on God's green earth that all that water coming out is only from the weep holes. That's what I was referencing earlier. What I said was that those drain flanges have 6 weep holes and 6 different troughs cut out at the top and the bottom of that flange. And there's cutouts on the inside of that barrel. Well, sorry, on not the barrel of the drain, because it has the male threads, but on the inside, the female threads, there are 2 large cutouts Go look at one. I don't have one to show you, but go look when you see what I'm talking about. That much water is coming out all of those areas and not just the weep hole. So that's not true.
The bucket now. So obviously some of the water is going to get caught up in the mortar. You can see even my fat mud curb is going to take in a little bit of water. But it's already starting. You can see here. See that water go away? So this is the way these pans are designed to work. Water is supposed to go through them. It's a water in, water out system. So one of the last things you want to do is put REDGARD or some other topical waterproofing on this.
Back up. The last thing you want to do is put REDGARD or any topical membrane on top. Guess what he does now? He puts a sheet membrane on it. And other tile guys use a topical membrane like I do. And a sealed system is what I started doing back 8, 9, 10 years ago. A sealed system by putting REDGARD. And I was catching a lot of flack back then. Because right where that drain is where I screed out some white silicone. And then I overlap that with REDGARD. And it is bulletproof. Trust me, it's bulletproof. And then Flow Effects came around, decided, you know what, we're going to make a product that we can sell and use thin set for that drain in order to sell a product. And then a fleece product goes on top of it. But even Flow Effects allows for a waterproofing membrane, liquid waterproofing membrane. So when he's saying this, let me back up and let him say it again so he can eat his words.
So one of the last things you want to do is put REDGARD or some other topical waterproofing on this, because it doesn't allow it to function properly. So, there we go. So I'll be able to tell on my timer how long that took. The water's all the way through. We'll probably have 4 inches. Like that. Let this weep out a little bit more. And water's moving around a little. 1 1/8, 2 1/4. So this is, I have probably 99%, I probably have 99% of the water that I poured in here into this bucket, all through the weep holes. This is a great system.
Wrong. It's not all through the weep holes. Don't do that.
The water goes in and it comes out. So please, if you're going to do these, use a pre-slope. I'm going to take this one step further. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to break a corner out of this pan so you can see that there is, I'd guarantee it, I would put $1,000 on this. You're not going to find a puddle of water on this pan liner.
Okay, so the reason that he says he can put $1,000 on this, foregone conclusion. What I was talking about with his REDGARD experiments, the one that you just watched, foregone conclusion. So when he screws up, I think he screws up on purpose, but when he's trying to make a point and trying to make something successful, he cheats. Watch this.
It's going to be damp, but there's not going to be standing water. So I'm going to do that.
I'm going to say this too, and you're going to see it a little bit later. See all that, those sand particles and all those chips and all that stuff on a solid mortar pan. You should not have all that chipping and all that sand. That's a lot of sand. Even at the bottom, look at the bottom. There's sand all over the place. You know, mortar is nothing but, you know, Portland cement and sand, which is the aggregate. And there's a lot of aggregate there. I mean, that mortar bed was not cured properly. I'll say that.
Okay, so look at that. The drainage mat is like completely dry. That's fascinating.
That is not fascinating. This is the drainage mat. Did you catch that? I want you to catch that again. I'm going to back up. Well, he's going to show it. The drainage mat. We don't use a drainage mat in a shower. What he's showing there, that top surface that he's showing there before the pan liner, is called Troba. T-R-O-B-A. You can Google it. It is a landscape material. It's not for showers. It is not for showers. There's no tiler on this earth that uses a Troba mat below their pan liner. Foregone conclusion. So when I say he cheated on this, and this is the thing that really irks me, I guess. Sal, if you go to this video, I think it was 8 years ago or something like that, Sal chimed in, well, what do you know about that? When Sal knows, and I know, and Isaac knows, that Troba mats are not a part of a pan. Never have been, and probably never will be. Because having a mat, having something below your mortar bed and your pan liner is going to cause movement. You cannot, the way that you can anchor a pan liner, you can't anchor Troba mat. So it's going to compromise your pan. If you put a Troba mat up under some mortar bed, you're going to have cracking in the mortar bed eventually, because that Troba mat gives as you step on it. And anyway, the point being, and he's going to show it. He's going to show it right here. Watch this.
There's no water on this drainage mat at all. So that water goes down through the deck mud, hits this drainage mat, goes through this fleece, and let me peel this back.
That's a Troba mat. See the bottom of there? The fleece on top of that is keep out all kinds of dirt and everything in your garden. A Troba mat is used for a landscaping material, and it's very, very pricey too, because I priced it at the tile store. Not tile store proper, but this place I go to in Metro Atlanta. I priced it, and he told me, what was it, $80 a square foot? Some crazy price. Is it a product that we never use? When he tries to make an experiment fail, he does very good with that. Just like the video you just watched about REDGARD. He made it fail. When he tries to make a video where the foregone conclusion is, let me use a Troba mat so I can get 99% of the water out of there, it's a foregone conclusion. It doesn't make any sense. I don't know. It kind of irks me.
So that's the amount of water that you are seeing on this pan liner. Look at that. There's literally drops of water. No puddling or pooling at all.
Duh.
So if you don't do a pre-slope, you might not get a callback. It might stay waterproof. Water might not find a way out, but water will sit in there and it'll get nasty. So why not put a pre-slope layer on it like this pan so that the water completely gets evacuated out of those weep holes? There's really no reason to do it. A pre-slope layer probably takes, I don't know, 10 minutes. Frustrating. But anyways, thanks for checking out my video. If you enjoyed this, if you want to see more stuff like this, please click like and subscribe. I really appreciate you guys watching. This is a lot of fun. Don't take yourself too seriously. If you're watching this and you're getting heated and you're typing your comments about how wrong I am, I'm just having fun, you guys. And I like to point out the things that I learn. So hopefully the mistakes that I've made in the past make you guys better. And vice versa. If you see something that I do and you've made that mistake before and you don't want me to make that mistake anymore, please comment. Let me know. I'm all for it. So I love you guys. Talk to each other. Reason things out. We'll talk to you soon.
He loves you. If you go back to his videos 5 years ago, 6 years ago, 8 years ago, he doesn't say that. He started saying that when he started getting monetized and he started seeing his channel grow. I'm just saying. He started saying that. Maybe I should say it. Maybe I'll get more subscribers. Being disingenuous is not helping anybody. having a foregone conclusion on an experiment that you already knew, Isaac. You already knew that. That's why you put the Trobomat there. Real life experiments, what he said on the REDGARD video, real life. And I broke that down and tore it apart. That's not a real life shower pan. Mine was. Cardboard box with mortar in it. With 4 different ones. He didn't use 4 different ones on that REDGARD. He only used REDGARD. And he didn't, if he had done the same thing, if he had slathered on, end up with a crack with Hydroban or Ardex or something like that, if he had ended up with a crack, he would have had the same result in a plexiglass box. He would have had the same crumbly mortar in a plexiglass box because he didn't let it cure 72 hours. He ended up with the same result here. He had crumbly mortar pan. That mortar pan, the way he tore it apart, looked like it was saturated for the last 25 years. That's how I see a mortar pan when it's saturated with water react. It just breaks down into sand particles. I've literally have taken tile off a mortar pan and scooped up sand. And my customer were like, why do you have sand in your hand? I'm like, because all the water that saturated that pan has broken down the product cement that's a binder. The binder is gone and all you have is sand now. So in a way, he's correct that you don't want water to saturate into your pan. But I have an experiment that I did after his, which I don't know when this was produced. I think it was 3-4 years ago, where I did the exact same experiment. And I had 99.9% of the water evacuate without any slope whatsoever, because my drain flange sat flat flush with the floor and water was able to get into those troughs that I'm telling you about. So it's not an even plane going across, and the little bit of tiny water that's left is going to evaporate into the mortar bed itself. I got to fight this stuff all the time. I hate fighting. And taking it seriously, the way he talked about, if you get all aggravated and all, like ruffled up and all that stuff, I'm just having fun. So am I. I'm passionate about what I say because I don't like misinformation. But I don't take it seriously because, again, at the end of the day, he has his customer base. I have mine. He's in California. I'm in Georgia. We're 2,500 miles apart. So we're not running into each other that it really matters. But I don't want one of my customers to say, oh, you're using REDGARD and I saw Isaac's videos and it's going to fail. No, it's not going to fail. Don't believe everything that you see. You have to break things down in their finest form. You have to compare apples to apples. If he had done an experiment, again, what I said about the REDGARD video, if he'd done an experiment where there's no shower pan pre-slope, right? And he set his flange, just because he uses my videos and my name a lot, where he sets his flange the way I do it, flush with the floor, and then did the same experiment side by side, he'd have the same result. I guarantee you, I'll put $1,000 on it. The reason that he could say, I'm going to put $1,000 that this will work is because he used a Trobomat. Period. End of story. We don't use Trobomats. What I think he did is I think he did that experiment off camera, and he realized that not all the water was escaping, even with the pre-slope. And he's like, ooh, how can I make this work? And he got his hands on, I don't know how he found out about it because I never knew about it until I watched his video. He got his hands on some Trobomat and he said, this is how I'm going to make it work. And then off camera, he put the Trobomat there. He did the same experiment off camera, and then he got the result he wanted. And then he showed it. That's my belief. I could be wrong. Anyway, that's enough of my sharp edges that I talked about. We're going on an hour. Ooh, 56 minutes. Okay, I'm going to come off of here. Enough of that. There's a couple of other videos of his that I might bring up and push back on if I can have the time to find them and all that stuff. I'm on vacation, so it's a lot easier for me to look for stuff. But there is a video coming up pretty soon. This kid does a divot system. If you've ever heard of the divot system on a shower pan, which I found out probably 9 years ago or something like that. And I'm like, ooh, that's kind of weird. The divot system on building a shower pan is effective, but I don't think the squeeze is worth the juice. I'm going to put it like that. I think that's my next video. So I'm going to do a breakdown on this kid doing this divot system shower pan. And you're going to see how much work it requires. And then you decide, if I were just starting out in this business and I saw that video and I decided, you know what, I'm going to use this system, I might do it once or twice and then realize how much work it is. And then I would come up with something different, because it's a lot of work. But you'll see that video coming up pretty soon. I'm going to end this video now before I go on too long. Mouth of the South. So anyway, have a good day whenever you see this, morning, night, daytime, whatever. And like, subscribe, do all that stuff, you know, like, subscribe, share, do all that stuff. I'm monetized now, so that matters. I don't have any merch yet. I don't have a store. I don't have, you know, selling merchandise and stuff like that. I don't have all of that stuff. I still require $50 for 30 minutes. And Isaac bumped that up to 150 because he kind of took that from me, which is okay. Do your thing, Isaac. I love you. I love being your tile coach. I'm just saying.